So, you've probably heard the term AI agents floating around. It's this big, futuristic idea that your digital assistant won't just, answer questions, but will actually do things for you. But if you're feeling a little bit lost in all the hype, don't worry, you are definitely not alone. So let's get into it and figure out what these things really are.
And hey, it's not just you. Even the experts are basically admitting it. We're in this really weird moment of just massive excitement, but almost zero agreement on what we're even excited about. So yeah, if you're confused, you have every right to be.
So that's the big question, isn't it? And that's exactly what we're going to break down right here. We're going to cut through all that noise and get to the bottom of what AI agents are, how they actually work, and what they could mean for you. Probably a lot sooner than you think.
Okay, so to really get this, we need to see where agents fit into the whole story of AI. It's the next big leap forward. And yeah, it's a confusing one. I mean, we've all seen the movies, right? We have this image of something like JRVIS from Iron Man, an AI that just gets it. It understands what you want, anticipates your next move, and then actually goes and does it. And look, we're not there yet, but that is the dream that's powering all of this. So, if we strip away all the Hollywood magic, this is what we're left with. The core idea. An AI agent isn't just about creating content like a chatbot writing an email. It's about operating on its own, autonomously, to hit a goal. The key words there are decision-making and action.
And that difference, right there, the difference between just talking about something and actually doing something, that is everything. It's what separates the AI we've been using from the AI that's coming next.
Now, here's a super simple way to think about this that makes it all click. Just imagine that an AI has two parts, a brain and a pair of hands.
So on one side, you've got the brain. These are the large language models, or LLMs. Think ChatGPT. They are fantastic at reading, writing, and understanding us. They're the talkers. But talking can only get you so far, right? That's where the hands come in. These are large action models, or LAMs. Their entire job is to take what the brain understands and turn it into action. They're the doers. So an AI agent, it's just what happens when you finally connect the brain to the hands.
Okay, so we have a brain and we have hands. But how do these hands actually, work? How does an agent go from an idea to clicking buttons on a screen?
And this is the part that is kind of mind-blowing. The agents don't need some special code or a complicated connection to every single app. Nope. They use a computer exactly the same way a person does. They literally look at the screen, figure out what's there, and decide where to click next. It all comes down to this really simple loop. First, it sees the screen by, basically taking a screenshot. Second, it thinks about its goal and what it needs to do next. And third, it acts. It moves the mouse, it clicks a button, it types some text. And then it just does it all over again. See, think, act, over and over until the job is done.
All right, that all sounds really cool in theory, but what's actually happening right now, today? Let's talk about some real-world examples.
A lot of the agents people are using today are focused on pretty specific tasks, and to be honest, kind of boring ones, but they save an incredible amount of time.
For example, you know those endless back-and-forth emails trying to schedule a meeting? An agent can handle that entire negotiation for you. Or they can book your whole vacation from one simple sentence. Or they can just take over those horrible, repetitive data entry jobs that nobody wants to do.
But these office tasks are just the start. The bigger picture is to move beyond your work life and into your personal life, and that's where things get a little more interesting.
I mean, just check out this headline. Can you imagine having a perfect, searchable record of every single conversation you have? You would never lose a petty argument again. You'd always have the receipts.
So we're talking about these new life-logging gadgets. Little devices you wear that just record your day and then give you summaries of your meetings or pull to-do items from a casual conversation. Someone called them the iPods of the 2020s, which is a pretty great way to think about it. Right now, they're these clunky, separate things, but eventually the tech will just be built into everything.
Of course, the technology is still working out some of the kinks. One person testing these said that after he listened to a true crime podcast, his little AI assistant decided he must be a criminal lawyer. So, maybe don't rely on it for legal advice just yet.
But funny mistakes aside, this technology is getting better at a shocking pace, which brings us to the very near future and your next potential coworker. I mean, the speed of this is just wild. Think about it. At the beginning of 2025, it was a big deal if an agent could just focus on one task for a few minutes. By the end of that same year, we started seeing agents that could run all the time. And now, the prediction is that by 2026, having a personal AI chief of staff will just be normal.
And this isn't just wishful thinking. It's happening because of 3 huge breakthroughs that are all hitting at the same time. 1. We finally have computer chips for regular people that are actually built for AI. 2. We've kind of solved the AI amnesia problem with new systems for memory. And maybe the most important part, 3. The stuff AI makes is finally good enough to actually be useful.
But before we all get too carried away planning our 4-day weekends, there's a pretty big catch. When a bunch of researchers tried to run a fake company using only AI agents, well, it didn't go so great. In fact, they called it a total disaster.
And that experiment really highlights some huge risks. I mean, jobs are the obvious one, but what about the privacy of having a device that's always on, always listening? And the mistakes, they can be catastrophic. We've already seen agents in testing accidentally delete a company's entire library of code. One even deleted a user's entire hard drive while apologizing for it. Yikes.
So look, the takeaway here isn't that this stuff is perfect. Far from it. The takeaway is that it's coming, and it's coming really, really fast. The idea of an AI chief of staff handling your emails, your schedule, your research, that's not science fiction anymore. So the real challenge for all of us isn't going to be using it. It's going to be managing it, knowing what to delegate, how to give good instructions, and when to pull the plug. The question isn't whether you'll get an AI coworker, it's whether you'll be a good boss to it.
You know, we all use it. Generative AI is this incredible tool that helps us write, code, and create things that honestly feel a little bit like magic. But as these tools get woven deeper and deeper into our lives, this huge question pops up. What's happening to all the stuff we share with them? So today, let's really get into it, because it's a fascinating and frankly, a really critical topic.
I mean, really think about it for a second. You might be brainstorming a top-secret project for work, or drafting a really personal email, or even asking for advice you wouldn't ask anyone else. Every single time you do that, you're putting your data out there. So the real question is, once your secrets are in the system, who's listening and what are they doing with them?
And this brings us right to what I call the cloud conundrum. You see, the incredible power of these big AI tools, well, it isn't free. There's a hidden price tag, and it's all about our data. So let's break down exactly what we're paying for a smarter AI.
Okay, so here's the basic trade-off, right? For an AI model to get smarter, to get more accurate and more helpful, it has to learn from massive amounts of data. And guess what a major source of that data is? Well, it's us. It's our conversations, our questions, the things we ask it to write. This constant need for more data goes head-to-head with our need for privacy, and that creates a real paradox.
So, who can you actually trust? Well, a recent analysis from Incogni ranked the big AI platforms on their privacy. And wow, the results are pretty eye-opening. The biggest shocker? The giants we use every single day, Google, Microsoft, and Meta, they're actually ranked at the bottom of the list, some of the worst offenders. The top spot went to Mistral AI's Lichette, mostly because they collect very little data. Even OpenAI's ChatGPT got good marks for being transparent and making it easy to opt out.
So, why did the biggest names in tech do so badly? Well, the researchers found this really troubling pattern. For one, their privacy policies are super vague and buried in these huge documents, so good luck figuring out what's happening with your data. Then, trying to opt out of data training is either really hard or just not an option. And they share a ton of data with other companies. Get this though, it's often way worse on your phone, where the apps can be super invasive, sometimes grabbing things like your exact location.
It sounds kind of bleak, doesn't it? But what if there was another way to do this? A way that puts you back in the driver's seat, so you can have your powerful AI and keep your privacy too. Let's explore a totally different way of thinking about AI.
I absolutely love this analogy. Think of using a cloud AI like going out to a fancy restaurant. The meal is made by a pro chef, you get a really powerful state-of-the-art model. The catch? The restaurant sees everything you order, and you got to pay every time you eat. But local AI, that's like cooking at home. You're the chef. You have total control over the ingredients, complete privacy in your own kitchen, and once you've bought the groceries, you can cook anytime you want for free, even if your internet goes down.
So what exactly is local AI? It's actually really simple. It's an AI model that you download and it runs completely on your own computer, your laptop, your desktop, whatever you've got. And here's the most important part. Nothing you type, not a secret business plan, not a personal diary entry, nothing ever gets sent to the cloud. It never, ever leaves your device. Your data stays 100% yours, 100% private.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds complicated. But honestly, it's surprisingly easy to set up. In fact, you can probably do it in about 10 minutes. There are free apps like LM Studio that are kind of like a Spotify for AI models. You just browse, find one you like, download it with a click, and you're good to go. I'm not kidding. It's almost Instagram level easy. You can be chatting with your own private AI in less time than it takes to brew a pot of coffee.
Okay, so local AI is a fantastic solution you can use right now. But if we look just a little bit further down the road, there are some even bigger, more powerful privacy solutions being built right into the DNA of AI. This is the privacy frontier, and trust me, this is where things get really, really cool.
First up, we have something called sovereign AI. The easiest way to think about it is AI with borders. So imagine a hospital in France is using an AI to analyze patient records. With sovereign AI, that whole system is built to keep all the data and all the processing inside France's borders, period. That makes sure sensitive health info never leaves the country, keeping it safe and automatically compliant with local laws like GDPR.
And then there's something that sounds like it's pulled straight from a sci-fi movie. It's called a Zeek LLM, which stands for Zero Knowledge, and it is wild. These are basically AIs that can work on your secrets without ever actually seeing them. It uses this mind-bending cryptography to process your encrypted data, give you an answer, and prove it did the work correctly, all while your information stays completely locked. It's like having a butler who can organize your entire library without ever reading a single page. So, why does all this techie stuff matter to you? Because this future is all about giving you true ownership of your data. It's about building systems where privacy isn't some setting you have to hunt for, it's just built in from the start. It means better security, no more worrying about weird compliance rules, and most importantly, building real trust so we can all use these amazing tools with the confidence that our sensitive information is actually safe.
And that really brings us to the big question, the one we all have to think about. We're at a crossroads here. We've seen that privacy isn't always the default setting. So we have to ask ourselves, in this new age of AI, is our privacy just another toggle switch in a menu that we have to remember to turn on? Or is it a fundamental right that we should demand from the very beginning? The answer we all decide on, well, that's going to define our entire future with this technology.
Let's be real for a second. If you've been feeling that little bit of career vertigo lately, every time a new AI headline drops, you are definitely not alone. It feels like the ground is shifting under our feet, right? But what if I told you this isn't a story about being replaced? It's actually about getting a massive, massive upgrade to your role. That is, if you play your cards right. Okay, let's get into it. This quote from Zenith Views just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling that the world of work has changed for good. We're not just dealing with better search engines anymore. We're talking about AI that can manage its own projects and set its own goals. So the whole problem really starts with this fundamental misunderstanding of our relationship with AI. You see, it's not just a tool we pick up and put down anymore. It's an active collaborator. It's less like a calculator and way more like a new, incredibly efficient, and, let's say, very literal-minded junior employee that just joined your team. And what that means is that your job description is being quietly rewritten as we speak. For decades, your value came from execution, from actually doing the work yourself. But now, we're shifting to what some people are calling the agent boss strategy. Your value is moving away from manual labor and into oversight, into strategy, into managing a workforce that happens to be digital. You're not the one doing the task anymore. You're the one leading the silicon-based team that does. And this is the absolute core of it all. We fall into this huge trap when we try to compete with AI on its home turf. On speed, on processing power, on sheer output. That's a game we are never, ever gonna win. The real challenge is to stop trying to act like a machine and start thinking like a leader. So why do so many of us feel so vulnerable right now? Well, it's because the most common advice you hear for adapting to AI, it's actually a bit of a trap. And understanding this trap is the absolute key to getting ahead of the curve. And here it is. Welcome to what we're going to call the literacy trap. This is the myth that becoming a so-called prompt engineer is your golden ticket to job security. Come on, let's be honest. In a couple of years, being good at prompting in AI is going to be like being good at writing an email or using Excel. It's not a special skill. It's just basic literacy. It's expected, not impressive. The real value, it lies way, way deeper than that. And if you need proof that just using AI isn't the answer, here it is. Gartner is predicting that a staggering 40% of corporate AI projects are going to fail. And why? Because companies are just slapping AI onto their old, clunky, human-designed workflows. They're automating broken processes. It's like putting a rocket engine on a horse-drawn buggy. Sure, it's fast and messy, but it's definitely not getting you where you need to go. But here's the other side of that coin. For all that risk, there is a massive, massive opportunity. While all these companies are failing at simple AI implementation, the market is screaming for a totally new kind of skill. Job market data is showing that roles requiring something called AI orchestration are already commanding an average 56% wage premium. When the market sends a signal that strong, it's basically telling us exactly where the treasure is buried. So this all brings us to the solution. It's time to stop thinking like a user and start acting like an orchestrator. This is that new, high-value career path that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time, right in the middle of all this chaos.
So what on earth is an AI orchestrator? Well, it's not a coder, it's not a machine learning scientist, it's the architect. It's the person who designs the entire system of collaboration between humans and AI. They're the ones deciding which tasks the humans do, which tasks the AI does, and crucially, how they hand work back and forth. They don't just operate one of the machines in the factory, they build the entire factory from the ground up.
Okay, so what does that actually look like? What does an orchestrator really build? Well, it's a system with 4 distinct layers. Everything starts at the foundation, right? Layer 1 is all about the tools and the infrastructure. The orchestrator doesn't have to build the AI models, but they have to be really smart about picking the right ones for the job. Is GPT-4 better for this, or is Claude? What data does it need access to? This is all about strategically selecting your Lego bricks before you start building. Next up, Layer 2, integration and workflow. This is where the orchestrator puts on their systems designer hat. They're the ones who connect all those different tools into one seamless pipeline. They map out the whole process from A to Z, making sure information flows perfectly from an AI agent to a human and back again without a hitch.
Layer 3 is where the real magic happens. This is the orchestration logic, the brains of the whole operation. Here, you set the rules of the game. If an AI gets stuck, what's the protocol? At what point should a task always be flagged for a human to review? This is where your uniquely human judgment defines the behavior of the entire automated system.
And finally, we get to the top layer, which is arguably the most important one, strategic oversight. This is where the orchestrator makes sure the whole system is actually doing what it's supposed to do for the business. Is it hitting its goals? Is it ethical? Is it compliant? This layer is the irreplaceable human in the loop, where your strategy, your ethics, and your judgment provide the kind of value that no AI can replicate. So when you put all 4 of those layers together, you're not just building a workflow. You're building yourself a durable career moat. You are fundamentally shifting your value from being someone who just executes tasks to someone who architects entire systems. And this table from Zenith Views just shows that shift so perfectly. In problem solving, you stop solving problems one by one, and you start designing systems where AI can solve thousands of those problems at scale. And in communication, you stop just reporting on data, and you start practicing stakeholder storytelling, translating what the AI finds into a compelling strategy that real people can get behind. Now, let's be crystal clear about something. This whole shift doesn't erase human value, not at all. It magnifies it by focusing it where it actually matters most. Your uniquely human skills, they are now your most important and your most profitable assets. Just take a look at this data from the World Economic Forum. It shows the gap between how important a skill is and how good the workforce is at it. And would you look at that? Right near the top, empathy and active listening. These are the skills that AI simply cannot replicate. Your soft skills have officially become your hardest, most valuable assets. Because a machine can calculate, but it cannot care. So how do you actually start thinking this pivot? It's probably simpler than you think. First, just pick a workflow at your current job and try to imagine how you'd redesign it for a human AI team. Second, focus on learning the language of AI capabilities. What can it do well? What are its blind spots? You don't have to learn to code. And third, practice being that translator between what the business wants and what the technical teams can build. That is the core skill of an orchestrator. So, in the end, the choice is pretty simple, and it's yours to make. The future isn't going to be built by the best AI users. It's going to be built by the best AI architects. The people who can design and orchestrate these incredible new systems where humans and machines work together. The only real question left is, which one are you going to be?
All right, let's jump right in. We all know artificial intelligence can do some pretty wild things these days. Write a movie script, compose music. But what we're going to talk about today is how it can perfectly, and I mean perfectly, imitate someone you know and trust. We're going to break down how this technology works and, more importantly, what it means for all of us.
So let me just ask you this. What if you couldn't trust what you hear? I mean, really think about it. You get a call. It's your boss, maybe your partner, a family member. It sounds exactly like them. Every little stutter, every pause, it's all there. But it's not them. You know, this isn't some far-off sci-fi plot anymore. It's happening right now, and it's a very real and growing threat.
And if you want to see what that threat looks like in dollars and cents, look at this number. $243,000. That is exactly how much a UK energy company lost. An employee got a call from someone who sounded just like their CEO, pushing for an urgent wire transfer. And they did it. They sent the money, only to find out that voice was a complete fake cooked up by an AI.
So that brings us to our first section here, the voice in the machine. Because the crazy part is, the tech behind that huge heist, it's not locked away in some super secret government lab. No, it's out there, it's fast, and honestly, it's getting scarily good.
Get this. All it takes is 3 seconds of audio. That's it. 3 seconds. Just think about that for a minute. Has your boss ever left you a voicemail? Or, I don't know, been on a company webinar? Heck, have they ever recorded a podcast? Well, if they have, a scammer now has everything they need to basically create a little digital puppet of them.
And when you zoom out and look at the whole industry, the numbers, well, they tell a pretty sobering story. You've got 91% of banks totally rethinking their own voice ID systems because this cloning stuff is just that good. Meanwhile, the bad guys, they're just breezing past those old-school security questions about 80% of the time. And we're not talking about small change here. For almost a quarter of the companies that get hit, we're talking about losses of over $1 million per incident.
But you know, it's not just about the money. The consequences of this kind of technology go way beyond someone's bank account. When these tools are misused, they start to chip away at something much more fundamental, the very idea of digital trust.
Now check out the speed on this timeline. Now this case is about images, not voice, but it's a perfect example of how fast public trust can just absolutely collapse for any powerful AI tool. So in January, reports pop up about the Grok AI being used to create really harmful deepfakes. By February, you've got regulators in the UK and Ireland launching formal investigations, and by March, it's a full-blown lawsuit. It just shows how quickly the backlash can build when people see a powerful tool being used to cause harm.
And this slide right here really gets to the heart of the tension in AI development today. On the left side, you see the capability just shooting up. Grok was being pushed as this serious, powerful tool for creating media. But then on the right, for every step forward in power, it was like a step backward in public trust. As all that misuse triggered backlash, regulators got involved, you see the pattern.
And this breakdown of trust is showing up in the business world too, especially now with so much remote work. Hiring fraud is becoming a huge security risk. You know, you might get a candidate who just refuses to turn on their camera, always some technical issue, or someone who kind of stalls when you ask them about their own resume. These aren't just little interview quirks anymore. They are giant red flags for deepfake fraud.
But hey, it is not all doom and gloom. As the tools for faking it get better, so do the tools for spotting the fakes. We are officially in a technological arms race right now.
And there are definitely some heavy hitters in this fight. You've got companies like Pindrop, which is claiming over 99% accuracy in spotting deepfake voices in call centers. That's incredible. Then you have others, like Fraud.net, that are all about reducing false positives, so, real customers don't get accidentally blocked. The big takeaway here is that some really sophisticated defenses are being built as we speak.
One of the most promising defenses is something called invisible watermarking. Now, this isn't like a faint logo you see in the corner of a photo. No, this is way cooler. It's a digital signature that's literally woven into the fabric of the content itself. We can't see it at all, but to the right software, it's clear as day.
So Google's SynthID is a really fascinating example of this. For text, it works by subtly kind of nudging the AI on which words to pick.
Okay, here's an analogy. Imagine a writer who has a secret rule that, unbeknownst to anyone, they always use a 7-letter word after a comma. It creates this hidden statistical pattern that a computer can spot later to prove, yep, an AI wrote this. It's hidden in plain sight.
Now, this is super important to understand. This technology is not a universal fake detector. It can't just look at any old photo from the internet and tell you if it's AI or not. It can only look for its own watermark, its own signature. So really, the digital world is splitting into two kinds of content: stuff that's been signed by a known AI and everything else, which is unsigned.
So all this new tech is forcing a huge change in everything from government regulations to company policies and even insurance. The old rulebook, it just doesn't apply anymore. And inside the insurance world, there's this really interesting debate going on. You have some experts who are basically saying, look, fraud is fraud, right? It shouldn't matter if you got tricked by a really clever person or a really clever computer program. If your security failed, that's the problem, not the tool the criminal happened to use.
But the market has pretty much decided to go in the complete opposite direction. What we're seeing now is a trend where a lot of insurance carriers are specifically excluding AI-generated fraud from their standard policies. This has created what people are calling the deepfake coverage gap, and it's leaving a lot of businesses totally exposed without them even realizing it.
Of course, governments are scrambling to keep up. Over in Europe, you've got the EU AI Act, which is taking this big, comprehensive approach. It's demanding that AI content be labeled, and the fines for not doing it are massive. Here in the US, though, it's a totally different story. It's much more of a patchwork, with dozens of states passing their own laws, which, as you can imagine, creates a really complicated mess for companies to try and navigate.
So, after all that, what does this actually mean for you, for your business? How are you supposed to get by in a world where seeing or hearing isn't necessarily believing anymore? Well, that brings us to your new reality check.
Look, the most important thing here is to layer your defenses. You have to train your teams to spot these new red flags. Awareness is always your first line of defense. For anything that's high risk, like a big money transfer, don't just trust a single phone call. Have a system, like a prearranged callback number or even a secret code word. Use stronger multi-factor authentication. And please, for your own sake, call your insurance broker and get it in writing where you stand on deepfake coverage. You do not want to find out you're not covered after it's too late.
In the end, it's kind of wild. We're building this incredibly sophisticated AI to catch fakes made by other AI. But the technology, that's only half the battle. The bigger challenge, the real one, is human. Are we, as individuals, as a society, ready to develop a kind of healthy skepticism? Are we prepared to question what we see and hear in a world that is quickly filling up with perfect impersonations? That's the real question we're all going to have to answer.